Welcome everybody to Funeral Nation episode 264. I'm Ryan Thogmartin. We've got Jeff, the funeral commander, Harbeson, and then we have another special co-host. Only second time in history we've had a co-host on Funeral Nation, and that is Curtis Funk. Curtis, give us a quick intro, man.
Yeah, quick intro. I'm founder, CEO, Tukios. We're a technology provider. Started out as a video creation and live streaming and all that stuff 12 or 14 years ago. Been in the space since I was a teenager, accidentally. But yeah. So Ryan and I have been at this for a long time. So is Jeff. But we were at in the funeral service, I think, accidentally as teenagers, and then Jeff was serving the country, I'm sure, right back then.
He was.
Yeah, that's back when I was taking kids to kindergarten.
Yeah, that's right.
That's what I'm doing now.
Gosh, Curtis, you and I were babies when we met. I remember having lunch with you in San Antonio for the first time way back. Golly. Yeah, we were just little kids. It was like 2007 or 8 or
That may have been back in the 1900s.
Yeah, that was a long time ago. But it's been cool, like to watch funeralrecordings.com go to, then you launched Tukios, and now Tukios websites, and like, man, you guys are just absolutely destroying the technology side of funeral service. Give us a little glimpse into the quick history of Tukios, how to start, where it came from, and what you're doing now.
Yeah. Honestly, our direction has really been simple. It's just like, what pains can we solve for funeral homes, right? And so, as you mentioned, funeralrecording.com, right? Like when my brother and I started this thing recording funerals in like 1999, 2000. So it wasn't the 1900s, Jeff. I was 15 and my brother was older. He had all the gear. We called ourselves Mountain West Memories because we're in the Mountain West, that's how we started. And then transitioned to funeralrecording.com, added live streaming. And it was really just, we were recognizing like pains there were, like locally here where we're at in Utah, most of the funeral homes record the memorial services. And so they were putting them on cassette tapes. So that was the pain. We wanted to get from cassette tapes to CDs, and then from CDs to the internet with MP3s, and then live streaming, right? So, but the interesting thing with like recording services and live streaming is it just was not like, mass market in a niche market already, right? So we just was like, well, what's next? And recognized that it was a pretty crowded space, like kind of a red ocean, if you are familiar with the blue ocean strategy term, like with tribute videos. But I looked at that and thought, there's like everyone's doing something really cool, but they're all doing like different cool things, right? And it was like, how do we like scoop all those things up into one platform? So it was like first web-based, first no scanning photos, first to get rid of burning DVDs, first to like fully integrate with all the website providers. So we're just really like, just solving the problems of the funeral home where it's like, okay, what sucks about about making tribute videos, scanning pictures, burning DVDs, trying to get the video on the internet, try to keep it on the internet, all that stuff. So we just made all that stuff automated and simplified it. And then, as the years went on, we focused on like tribute videos exclusively for 10 years. And then, a few years ago now, recognized that's like, like it's time to branch out into some other technology offerings. And so launched our website platform really with the same kind of mindset of like, how do we solve the problems of the funeral homes are dealing with? How do we make this simple? How do we not make it time consuming? But also like looking at all the providers out there, they're all doing really cool things again, and saying, how do we take what we like that we've seen? Obviously there's a lot of innovation on the tail end of that, but to begin with, it's like you got to have feature parity. You got to be able to at least do what everybody else does. And so we want to make sure we were doing what everybody else does, and the things that we like the most, that we felt like were in the best interest of the funeral home. So it's like to try to make the sales pitch kind of a no-brainer. So that's really what got us to where we are now.
Yeah. It's good stuff, man. And you're crushing it on that side. And like, that's where we're really, Jeff and I were talking about where we want to go with this conversation is just the technology. Like, you got a good grasp on, and really a leader in the technology side of death care. So walk us through 2023. Would we see change from a technology standpoint? And then we'll get into where we're going in 24.
Yeah, I mean, 2023, I think most people could probably answer this for me, right? AI would be where we'd go with that. That was the newest thing, the explosion of Chat GPT and everything else. And, so for all the technology providers, our focus was like, obviously integrating some AI. And AI is interesting today, right? Where it's like everything now is AI. It's like when, like in the 90s, everything was turbo, right? You just stick turbo on something, now it's better. The last 5-10 years, it's like if you got a video platform, put the word plus at the end, and all of a sudden it's something better, right? Disney Plus, Apple Plus, everything's plus, right? Well, today it's AI, whether it's AI or not. And all it is just the advancement of technology is moving so quickly. And there's obviously for sure the deep learning and the large language models and everything else that we're all trying to like use. But yeah, that was I think the biggest thing for sure of 2023 was AI. And so, we saw most providers launch an AI obit writer. That seemed like to be like the most obvious thing. And we did that as well. But we did it second. The first AI product we launched at the beginning of the year last year was trying to focus again on like a customer pain, which is guest book moderation, right? You get 250, 500 guest book entries, whatever, a week, and you're like reading through them. And it's like out of a couple hundred, only one of them is bad that needs to be tossed aside. And so we thought, that was a really good use of AI to like get rid of all that moderation and just solve pain. And we've seen that, that usage is really high on that. It's like everybody uses that. AI obit writing, people are getting more and more comfortable with. Mm-hmm. So you're seeing like that getting used a little bit more. And really, I think that's, if we're talking about 2024, we're going to see a lot as well with the stamp AI on it, whether it is or not, right? We're going to see a lot more talk about AI. And in my opinion, I think, it's the role of like our role as like a technology provider for funeral homes. There's 150 cool tools we can show them. It's like, if you use this for this, it's going to save you a ton of time. You do this, it's going to save you a ton of time. The issue is when you're spread out across 100 different tools, you're not saving a lot of time, right? You're using a ton of things, and it's actually taking a lot of more of your time. So that's kind of a focus of ours with like 2024's innovation, at least on the AI front, is like, how do we take these tools that are out there? They're really, really awesome, like image generation and image like upscaling, image correction, image like repair, right? So a lot on the photo side, because that benefits both websites and videos, and say like, how do you take those tools and seamlessly integrate them into the process they're used to? So a funeral director creates an obituary online, uploads the photo, picture of grandma and grandpa. Well, grandma's still alive, so circle her, remove her, boom, fix grandpa, boom. AI does that. Blurry photo, upscale it, boom. Just clicks, right? Mm-hmm. AI's got us to that place where we can do that. But it requires subscriptions to this and subscriptions to that and everything else. So for us, it's like we got to get those tools and put them in front of the funeral director where it's just like seamless. Anybody can do it. They're blown away by how easy it is, right? So that's 23, but also like I think where that piece of technology flows into 2024.
I like that. I think that we've overcomplicated AI and death care a lot. There's a lot of noise, and like you said, everything is AI. So it doesn't matter what it is. It's AI, whether it is or not. And there's been a lot of noise around it, and the simplification of the tools, because you can go down a rabbit hole and find thousands of AI tools, and now you're not saving really any time. So I love that conversation, and I love where you're going with that and how you're leading that. You and I did an AI webinar last year that really probably was the kickoff to a big AI conversation across the board in death care. So, you're always leading that conversation. You talked about guest book entries, and which leads me to a conversation that really got ramped up. You and I did a webinar second half of the year last year where we talked about data, and that has created a mass conversation about data from all providers in different areas. And there's a lot of noise, there's a lot of chaos, there's a lot of misinformation. And I want to ask you straight up, and we asked John Heald this question too on the last episode. And if you don't want to answer, like, cool, fine, but I know you don't run from anything. So I'm going to straight up, like, what does Tukios do with data? Where is it going? What's happening with data that's collected?
Yeah, I'd love to answer that question. Yeah, we funnel all the data into one section of the website we call the audience. So that would be all the first party data collected by the website. And the data is 100% owned by the funeral home. We don't do anything with it, right? So that being said, there's opportunities to do data like sharing through our integrations. So like, we've got an integration with ASD, right? Which most every funeral home uses that. And so in that case, like, we turn on the ASD integration and they would see not talking guest book and like first party data collected by the website, but more data put in to the system by the funeral home. So obituaries, name, dates, photos, service information, right? So like that stuff goes in and we will share that data to ASD if the funeral home has turned on the ASD integration, right? So like the funeral home owns all the data. The funeral home's in control of all the data. We don't share it to anyone unless the funeral home has turned on the integration. We've got integrations with ASD, Pasari, Halcyon, Legacy, Osiris, a lot of the live streaming providers. And depending on and Google, Meta. So there's like areas where there's these integrations they can turn on and then, but it's theirs. They decide where it goes. It's 100% owned by them. And then, to really like back that up, because we've been hearing this noise for a while. It's like, what are these website companies doing with your data? It's like, well, we literally like it's 100% owned by the funeral home. So really to back that up, we're the only provider I'm aware of at this point still that has just made your data like a one button download, right? So like we're saying like it belongs to you. And so you can take it anytime you want. So they can just go in their settings and say, download my entire site. It's like 21 tables. Includes all the obits, service information, photos, guest book entries, everything just all zipped up and packaged up for them to take. So yeah, we love the question about data, to be honest. Anytime it comes up, there is a lot of like, I think there's kind of like, I don't know, use the word fear mongering is like the only kind of word that comes in my head. And I feel bad kind of saying that, but like, it seems like it's kind of painted as a scarier picture than it is. Especially because, we know the other website providers and we know, what's going on with the data. And I don't think anyone is, really abusing the data that they're collecting. And so it's like a hot topic, but one that I think the narrative on it needs to flip a little bit where it's less about like fear, because there's really not that side of it, and more about opportunity. Like, what can you do with all this data? Because you've got it. Your websites get a lot of traffic. And we report all that's going on with the website. But again, we don't use it for personal gain at all. And it's written that way in our, terms of use and privacy policy and everything else.
Curtis, just as a question, and you're saying using it, if you owned a funeral home and you had the data that's available from your sources, what would you do with it? How would you make best use of the data that's been collected from your funeral or your programs, but at your funeral home? Let's say now, poof, you're a funeral home owner and you have this data. What do you do with it?
Yeah, that's a great question, Jeff. Honestly, I would be really intentional about how I'm collecting it and making sure I'm getting like marketing opt-in, right? So like I would be going and making sure like on the website, I'm adding contact forms with a checkbox that says it's okay for us to market to you, right? Because we do see like it's pretty common for a funeral home to have thousands and thousands of email addresses collected via the guest book and everything else. And so trying to, like repurpose that and actually use it legally for marketing is important. Now, if you don't have that, there's other things you can do with that list that you've collected where you're not like directly marketing to that person, but you're using it as like a lookalike list, right? So there's things that can be done. And, Ryan's like an expert on that and could really help funeral homes with that. But that's one of the things I would be doing, Jeff, is just like trying to collect the data intentionally on purpose and then funnel it into some sort of follow-up campaign via CRM or whatever else that is. Because if I'm a funeral home, there's really kind of two things. If I'm running the funeral home today, there's two things I'm worried about. I can sell pre-need to anybody, right? Hopefully, like that's my market. And other than that, really the main thing is just top of mind. That's like,
Right.
those are the two things I would be focused on nonstop. And so like if I'm intentionally collecting information and people or first party data through the website, I want to make sure I'm using that to remain top of mind. So
Right.
whether that's newsletters, grief emails, inviting them to events, whatever that's going to be, but that would be my focus and what I would do with the data.
Gotcha. Does it help with some of your, and I'll switch this and kind of lean it over to Ryan. That helps with your target marketing and basically finding out which areas that you're drawing business from. So if you're in a Smithville, Utah, if you will, but you have 6 or 7, little communities around you, and you see that certain communities that you've done really well with, you obviously want to keep a presence of mind there with a campaign. And then Ryan, for you, if you want to draw from those other 6 communities, then this data shows you're getting some, but how do I market to them?
Yeah.
Right, through social media, different opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if funeral homes understand the value of the data. And we talk a lot about the data, but like Curtis is right. Like if you're going to email and market directly to somebody, there needs to be an opt-in. Where you can leverage that data immediately is inside of a social platform where you can create targeted lists and lookalike audiences. And, I mean, the beauty is if you have, 1,000 email addresses that have been collected through your website, and you put that into Facebook and you go, okay, Facebook, we want to segment this out here this way in these zip codes. Facebook's going to pare that list down and give you a number. And then you can go, okay, give me another list that look identical to this list. And now you can double the size of your targeted audience. And so there's a lot of funeral home can learn about their market and their actual core consumer by the data that's collected through their website. And Curtis, I want you to address just one thing real quick. You said first party data a couple times. Just break down what first party data means.
Yeah, so first party data is what's collected on your website. So when someone goes to the website, interacts with your website directly, they fill out a contact form, they put in their name, email, phone number. That's first party data. And there's like all the rage on the data world is like the term of zero party data, where you're like trying to, they land on your website, instead of like going and finding a form to fill out, you reach them. So you like pop up right on the home page and you say, hey, enter whatever. It might be a sweepstakes. It might be like whatever, right? That's like, you're like actively jumping in front of them and trying to get them to fill out data. It's kind of like zero party. Second and third party is like where you're reaching it now through another level, maybe through a partner, or a third party data is like you're buying lists, right? But so that's really not important for the funeral home. It's more like, where are you collecting first party data on your website? And where we've seen like the most success, honestly, is where you have a funeral home that's very focused on pre-need, right? So they're thinking about pre-need, and so they're putting together little white books or white pages, or like ebooks, and those are kind of dying off a little bit, but the same are just like, your planning guides. You see a lot of that. I think there's probably more creative ways to do it. Definitely events, putting on events, and Ryan, you posted something the other day that was super cool about like some ideas for some events, right, that funeral homes could run. And so getting active on your website and saying like, we want to be changing the content and changing the calls to action and changing the forms to get people to something, have some sort of what we call a lead magnet, right? So they're coming in, they're filling out, and then you're asking for that ability to market to them. Or if you're getting them to an event, that's going to be just excellent, because you get some face time with them.
Well, I mean, content is the name of the game. And that's, you mentioned top of mind. You have to create to stay top of mind. And the website is the nucleus. And that's where, relationships can be built through interaction on social media, but the website is kind of the hub. Like that's the foundation where they're going to come back to and navigate to, because that's where all the information is housed in one place. No one's scrolling through Facebook months back to try to find data or information on something specific. They've seen it in their feed. They know that it exists. Now they're coming to the website to make that final connection. So, it's when the website technology meshes with the marketing then you've got the perfect storm. And I will say, we work with all the providers, and funeral homes have the easiest time getting data, their lists and things, and integrations from Tukios. So, you are true to your word that the funeral home owns the data and they choose what happens to the data. So, all right.
Yeah, it's got to be that way.
Okay, so let's have a little bit of fun. I'm gonna ask you a few fun questions here because that's what we're gonna start doing with co-hosts. And my first question for you is, like, you travel a lot. Like you're probably on the road more than I am, and I feel like I'm never home. So you get to eat at a lot of great places. What is, like, man, if you were gonna just go anywhere for one meal, where are you going and what is the meal?
Yeah, okay. It's going to probably be something you've never even heard of. So I would go eat doubles in Trinidad, probably in a little town called Debe or one called Chaguanas. Doubles, I mean, if you haven't had doubles, most people haven't had doubles. So it's like, you got to think about it. But they look like kind of like tacos, right? So it's like it's a West Indian food, but it's kind of like Indian. It's curry, like garbanzo beans, lots of spices, mangoes, cucumbers, all this stuff.
Wow.
And it's so good. And they put two, just down on a piece of wax paper, and you kind of eat them like a taco. They're super messy, but literally, like, they are so good. And so I'd get them there because that's where it's a Trinidadian food. If you live in Orlando, there's Singh's Roti Shop outside of Orlando. If you're in Fort Lauderdale, there's Joy's Roti Shop that you can get them at in Fort Lauderdale by the Lauderhill Mall. And those are and there's one in Tampa. There's so maybe we can have a little field trip at ICCFA and get ourselves over, because they are unbelievable, man. It's like I like ethnic foods a ton. I like Mediterranean food, Indian food, Mexican food, Italian, whatever. But there's just something different about Trinidadian doubles, man.
Okay.
So good.
I like it. All right, got another one. What is the perfect day? Tell me what the perfect day is.
Oh, geez. Perfect day for me would be up early in the morning on a mountain bike ride somewhere awesome. And then same day, 18 holes of golf. So this is probably going to have to be Hawaii, I'm guessing. So killer mountain bike ride, and then 18 holes of golf with a beautiful view, and then afternoon surfing.
Wow,
that's perfect.
I like it.
Now you're talking.
That is dope. Okay, final question. Best piece of business advice you have ever received?
My mind's stuck on one, and sorry, so I had to actually come up with one the other day. So this is bad because I'm not trying to give myself business advice, but probably, like, someone asked me, like, what's some of the worst mistakes you've made as an entrepreneur? I'm like, the list is so long. Like, I've blown it so many times. But so I said, if I were to, like, boil those down into three messages, and I kind of gave one, but there was one that, like, really kind of, it meant a lot to me, which is, like, results are more important than recognition. Because I feel like the times in my life, especially as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, where I've focused on recognition, I'm not getting the results I'm actually looking for. I'm trying to grow the business. I'm trying to serve customers, and do the best I can over here. But when I'm focused more on recognition, that's more of like, I'm more turning inward, and I'm, like, thinking more about me, I think. And so, like, those, as every entrepreneur, you got this roller coaster of ups and downs, and my downs, I feel like the years where I didn't do what I wanted, like, didn't accomplish what I wanted to, is typically because I was looking for recognition more than results.
Sure. I like it. So good. Nice. Okay. Curtis, thank you for joining us as the second co-host on the Funeral Nation show. That is powered by our friends at C&J Financial. So shout out to Jeff and Jamie and the crew there. And I'm sure C&J has a great integration with Tukios as well. So there we go, bringing the worlds together.
That's it.
All right. Any closing thoughts, Jeff?
No, I was just saying it's interesting, Ryan, if we think back of starting this show and when we actually had funeral homes with no websites. Do you remember discussing that? It was like
I do.
9%. And now today, I don't know how you can function without one. I do know that faxing is still a thing from a business perspective, but we're slow to integrate and accept technology. And I think the COVID crisis propelled everybody forward and made us, more technological, if you will. But in a way, I think it's made the funeral profession more proficient serving families and really providing families an opportunity to do things from a different perspective. We still have to go to the funeral home to pick up a GPL. It's not a mandate to be online. So we still have so many windows of opportunities of growth, and it'll take us different places. However, Curtis, you've been a big part of this. Certainly, Ryan, you have as well. As preaching the technology, use it, make it safe. And the biggest piece of it is if you don't know what you're doing, ask somebody, raise your hand, call and have a conversation. So I'm not familiar with this. I keep hearing about AI. How does it work for my funeral home? Curtis's staff and team there. And certainly once you get that information, I'm sitting here wishing we had this sort of data back in the day, right? Owning a funeral home, because it would make a difference in the marketing and how you reach your community, and not only monitoring what's going around, from a military standpoint. I want to know what my competitors are doing as much as what I'm doing, right? And collect that data in a reasonable, legal way, right? And so, anyway, it's going to be even more interesting, I think, in our future coming as people, lack of a better word, everyone gets online, and now what comes of it.
Yep. Good stuff. You're right. Here we are. We've come a long way. We're moving forward every day, and that's the key. So thank you, Curtis, for being a co-host of Funeral Nation episode 264. Until next time, have a great effing week.
All right, out here.
Get your ass up and slip it. Roll up and smell